Well, in the previous lessons, I think 3 lessons ago, I talked about solving. Solving is the act of finding x-intercepts, zeros, or roots. And there are 3 ways to solve quadratic equation. You either do solve by factoring, you can do solve by quadratic formula, which you will learn in the next unit, or you can solve by isolation. Now, I've already covered solve by factoring. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to cover solve by isolation. Okay. So over here, we have the vertex form. 5x minus 3 squared minus 4 equals 0. When you're solving by isolation, all you're doing is you're rearranging the terms, and then you're trying to isolate the x alone. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So first of all, I'm going to move the -4 to the other side. But in order to do so, I need to copy down everything that did not move. So in this case, 5x minus 3 square. Okay, they stay exactly the same place, only this guy moved. All right, then I'm going to move the 5 over. Now, notice how the 5 and x minus 3 squared has a multiplication relationship because this is 5 multiplying x minus 3 squared. So to reverse that multiplication, I do division. I copy down everything that did not move in this case, and I'm going to divide by 5, like that. Okay. Now, I need to get rid of this square. And in order to reverse the square, I need to use something called square roots. So I'm going to do that. Now, a common mistake with people using square root is they just leave it like that. But in reality, when you square root, you need to add the plus and minus sign over here. Okay, let me write some steps for you over here. So step 1, you're usually adding or subtracting. The k value. Okay, in case you don't know what I mean by k value, just check this out. You have a x minus h squared plus k right over here. So add subtract the k. You move it onto the other side. Then what you want to do is you want to get rid of the a value. And since this is always a multiplication, you would divide. Okay. In order to get rid of the square, you need to square root. And when you square root, you don't want to forget the plus minus sign. The reason why you want to add a plus minus sign is because it will allow you to have 2 answers, 2 possible answers. Okay, great. So now that we have resolved the square, we need to move the h away from the x. So let's copy down everything that did not move first, in this case, over here. And the minus 3, when you move over, it's going to become positive 3. So you can either write it over here plus 3, or what a lot of students will do, so that's optional, they can also put 3 over here. So this is acceptable as an answer. You can also write like this. Okay, either or is fine. Now, a lot of students will think, so sir, so there's only one answer. What do you mean by 2 answers? Well, this thing over here really represent 3 plus square root 4 over 5. And this thing over here also represent x is equals to 3 minus root 4 over 5. So you have 2 answers. Now, obviously, we desire to have a decimal answer, so you would punch it on the calculator, 3 plus square root, bracket 4 over 5. And you should get 3.89 approximately. Now, if you don't know how to punch this in, I'm going to write it over here on a calculator. You'll punch in 3 plus square root button, you want to use brackets, 4 divided by 5, and brackets, and an equal sign over here. Okay, so again, 3 plus square root sign, bracket, 4 divided by 5, and bracket equal. And you should get x 0.89. So you can try that with this one. For me, I got 2.11. So the two answers are 3.89 and 2.11. Okay, so what I want you guys to do is to practice a little bit. I want you guys to try this question yourself. Okay, and when you're done, just hit unpause and check your answer with mine. Okay, so let's take this question up. The very first thing that I'm going to do is copy down everything that I did not move. I'm going to move the positive 1 onto the other side, so now it becomes -1. Now, make sure you always line up your equal sign over here, okay, for clarity and organization. So after you have moved the k onto the other side, we are going to divide both sides by -2. So x plus 5, we copy down everything that we did not move. And -1 will be divisible by -2. We'll divide by 2. -1 will be divided by -2. Now I'm going to clean up the other side because you can see that double negative is going to become a positive, right? -1 divided by -2. If you don't believe me, you can punch on a calculator. You get positive 1 over 2. You need to get rid of the square roots. So you square root the other side. Don't forget the plus minus sign. Okay. Now we need to move the h value onto the right hand side. So x is equals to -5 plus minus 1 over 2. Square root 1 over 2. The reason why there's -5 over here, because this was positive 5. When you move across the equal sign, it becomes -5. So x is equals to -5 plus square root 1 over 2. X is -5 minus square root 1 over 2. You want to punch that in on the calculator. And I got -4.29 as one answer. And the other answer, I got -5.71. Okay, so the final answers are -4.29 and -5.71. Okay, so let's do a word problem. Over here, a ball is hit into the air and its height, h in meters, after t seconds is given by this equation. After how many seconds will the ball hit the ground? Okay, so as I mentioned in the last lesson, this is a key phrase where they are actually interested in finding the x-intercepts. Okay, so you actually have to solve the quadratic equation over here. And again, there are 3 ways to solve the quadratic equation as I listed over here. We're going to do solve by isolation. So I want you guys to try that again. Okay, solve this word problem by isolation. So go ahead and try it. Okay, so hopefully you have found the answer. I'm going to start taking this up. After how many seconds, that means t is unknown, will the ball hit the ground? So the height of the ball when it hit the ground is going to be 0. Okay, so over here, I'm going to plug in 0 into the height is equals to -4.9 t minus 4 square plus 120. If I'm solving by isolation, I need to move the k value to the left-hand side. So from a positive 120, when you shift it over, it's going to become -120. Okay, notice how I'm still lining the equal sign up for clarity. Okay, now I need to get rid of the a. I'm going to divide the left-hand side by the a value of -4.9. And we're dividing because negative 4.9 and t minus 4 squared has a multiplication relationship. Okay, since these are double negatives, it becomes positive, and we're going to get rid of the square with the square root. And of course, don't forget the plus minus sign in front. And let's get rid of the h on this side. This was negative 4, so when I move over, it's going to become positive 4. Okay. Am I done? Absolutely not. Okay, we still need to come up with the two answers. Just trying to move these higher so I have more space. Oops. Okay, so t is therefore equals to 4 plus square root 120 over 4.9. So let me punch that in on the calculator. I got 4 plus square root brackets 120 divided by 4.9 and bracket, enter. And I have 8.95. Okay, now don't forget the units because this is, after all, a word problem. So how many seconds? So 8.95 seconds. Over here, we get 4 minus square root 120 over 4.9. So 4 minus square root bracket 120 divided by 4.9 and bracket equals. So I got negative 0.95 seconds. Now, as mentioned in the previous lesson, we cannot have negative time, so this is actually rejected. So the only possible answer is this one, okay? The ball hit the ground. At t equals 8.95 seconds. This is the final answer. Cool. So I think you guys understand how to find the x-intercepts or the zeros or the roots by isolation. Let's show you one more word problem where it is not as straightforward, okay? So a rock is thrown off a bridge that is 15 meters above a river. If it reaches a maximum height of 18 meters after 1.25 seconds, when will it hit the surface of the water? So right off the bat, you know that this is solving for zeros, okay, because you have the key phrase over here. Now, what is interesting about this problem is that the equation is not given. So your very first job is you need to come up with the equation. Okay, are you going to use factor form or are you going to use vertex form? So that's something for you to decide after reading the problem yourself. Now, after that, then you're going to solve. Okay, are you going to solve by factoring? Or are you going to solve by isolation? That's something that you have to decide on your own. Okay, so why don't you take a moment, figure out the first part, and if you're stuck, then feel free to unpause the video at any point. Okay, so let's start taking this question up. Our first job is to come up with the equation. We have the option of factor form or vertex form. Now, in order to decide which one to use, we need to read the question. If they provide us with this x-intercepts, then we use factor form. But if they provide us with the vertex, we need to use the vertex form. Now, obviously in this question, they want us to find the zeros. So there's no way that we're going to use the factor form because we need the zeros for that, and they're asking us for the zeros. Okay, so let's take a read at the question. A rock is thrown off a bridge that is 15 meters above a river. If it reaches a height of 18 meters after 1.25 seconds. Okay, so this is how I imagine it. You have a bridge over here, and basically the item is thrown off, and it travels through the air, and it comes crashing down, okay, into the water. like that. And they're interested in finding out when it hits the surface of water over here. Now, what they do know is that it reached a maximum height of 18. So at this point, this is 18 after 1.25 seconds. So this is 1.25 seconds. And this is the height in meters. So they technically gave us the vertex over here. So definitely we're going to use the vertex form. Now the vertex is y equals a x minus h bracket square plus k. That's the vertex form. Okay, but let's use variables that make more sense. Since we're talking about height, we're talking about time, we're going to use h over here and we're going to use t over here. Okay. All right. So we need to fill in the vertex. So over here we know the AOS is at 1.25. So this is going to be minus 1.25. And the maximum height is 18. So this is going to be plus 18. So what we still do not know is the A value. Okay. Now we need to find the A value. And in order to do that, okay, we need another point on this parabola. Now they gave us a hint. They told us that the bridge is 15 meters above a river. So if you actually imagine that this over here, this bridge is the y-axis and the water here is the x-axis, this point will be the y-intercept. We know that this is 15 meters high. So this point is going to be 0, 15. So what we're going to do is we're going to sub in the y-intercept 0, 15, okay, to find the A value. So 0 will go into the t, 15 will go into the height. Okay. So 15 is equals to A, negative 1.25 to the power of 2 plus 18. Now we need to solve for A, so we need to move the 18 to the left-hand side. So 15 minus 18, that's going to be negative 3. Okay. Now, negative 1.25 to the power of 2. It is 1.5625. We need to solve for A. We recognize that 1.5625 and A has a multiplication relationship. So if we want to isolate A, we need to reverse that multiplication by dividing negative 3 by 1.5625. And the A value is negative 1.92. So therefore, the equation over here in vertex form is h equals negative 1.92 t minus 1.25 square plus 18. Okay, because all we're doing over here at this step is just to find the A value. Here, let me help you a little bit. Okay. Great. So now that we have the vertex form equation, we still need to answer the question, when does the rock hit the surface of the water over here? We need to find the x-intercepts. So we are still interested in the time. We know that when the rock hit the water, the height of the rock is 0. So we're going to plug the 0 into the h over here. So 0 is equals to negative 1.92 t minus 1.25 square plus 18. Now, if you had trouble coming up with the equation and you wanted a chance to solve the question, feel free to pause the video now so that you can try and figure this one out on your own, okay? Otherwise, I am going to continue on solving for this. So I'm going to solve this by isolation. I'm going to move to 18, the k value to the left-hand side. So 0 minus 18, you get negative 18 over here. Okay. And I think a lot of you guys understand. I'm going to divide negative 1.92 over to the left-hand side. These two are negative, so it becomes positive. And in order to remove the square, I'm going to square root and add the plus minus sign. Okay, I need to get rid of the h. So when I move this negative 1.25 to the other side, it becomes positive 1.25 plus minus root 18 over 1.92 equals t. Okay, so what are the possible times? We have one that is 1.25 plus square root 18 over 1.92. Now let me punch that in on the calculator. And I got 4.31. Don't forget the units. In this case, it is in seconds. And over here, we got t equals 1.25 minus root 18 over 1.92. I have a feeling this will be rejected. And it is, because the time is negative 1.81 seconds. So this is going to be rejected. Okay, so to answer this question, when will the rock hit the surface of the water? It will hit the surface of water at 4.31 seconds. It will hit the water at 4.31 seconds. Okay, so hopefully that lesson was very clear on how to do things. If not, feel free to email me.